We have just finished watching the fifth episode of House of David, the Lion and the Wolf, or the Wolf and the Lion. And we're going to get into our thoughts of the episode. I'll be honest with you, it's the first time in this series that I'm actually slightly conflicted. But we'll get into our thoughts shortly. Before we do that, my name is Chinn. This is Professor Nick, and this is Offbeat POV, and we are a Christian show, and we just like talking about things that's happening in the world, culture, and everything around us, but from a biblical point of view. We really like having deep conversations where we go deep into the weeds of matters that are enriching and helpful to us as Christians, and hopefully to you as a Christian as well. Listen, if that sounds interesting, then you should definitely consider subscribing. But if not, if you're just here for the review of House of David, then let's get into that. Okay, so I think it's probably fair for me to start as to why I'm a bit conflicted with this episode.
Let's hear it. But I think let's hear it.
Okay, so generally off the bat, I just want to specify that I did like the episode, right? Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the episode. I enjoy the series in general because I think the series, I think we mentioned it in our last review. The writing is good. The production is decent. I can watch it and not feel like you're watching a play or like a high school production or something, or you know. So all that, no problem. My issue is with the creative liberties that this show portrayed. Now,
it took you 5 episodes to raise something I've been raising from episode 0.
And this is why because obviously we have explained and we have touched on the fact that I'm okay with creative liberties to a certain point, because the Bible gives us snapshots. And I'm okay with taking a story and filling in the gaps between those snapshots.
But then there's a question you've got to ask: at what point does it then stop being the House of David as per the biblical?
Yes, not even that. But at what point are you no longer just filling in the gaps, but now you're creating a whole different story. Exactly. Now, the reason I say that is because for the majority of this episode, the focus was on the wedding of Mirab and Jordan. Obviously, it was the wedding off of Michal, which we know eventually became David's wife. So I'm guessing that was the point of this episode. Like, oh no, David's wife is going to get married off. What's going to happen? The drama, how it's going to get resolved. So that I'm guessing that was the idea behind the episode. But all of it was meaningless to the story of David.
Exactly.
And we didn't need that. Not only that, but it actually changes the story of David. Because in the Bible, David, after he defeated Goliath, Saul had promised him to marry his daughter. David was meant to marry Mirab, the older daughter, but before all that was finalized, she got married off to someone else. And that's how David ended up with Michal, the one that he actually loved. That's drama in itself. Why did Mirab get married off? You know, you can create a story that still, still stays true to that narrative and still fill in the gaps as to why the drama, why did she get married off and everything else. Why did you have to create a whole different storyline altogether? It's so, and I have heard people levy the criticism that they feel like the liberties are too far. Up until this point, I wouldn't have agreed with that too much. I would have said, if you're watching it as a biblical account, yes, too far. But if you're just watching it as a biblical inspired story, we're okay at the moment. Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah. And the issue now is, you're saying you're not so sure now, but it's too late now. You can't do anything. You can't reverse it. The minute that David went into the house of Saul, that's where it all went wrong. Because
no, it didn't. Because actually, I have to correct that, because I think before you did say that David only ended up in the house of Saul after Goliath, but no, he didn't. Okay. David was in the house of Saul because of his playing. Because when Saul went mad, somebody in the house of Saul, the Bible says a young man said, "Oh, I know of a shepherd boy who's really talented in music." So that's how David, and that's why I was okay with the love story.
So this was before he went and fought Goliath.
Yes, all that was before he went and fought Goliath.
Fair enough. So that's a fact check on me. Then that's fine. Okay, fine. So if you do it like that, so why are you so mad as to how things have played up now? Because if that's the case, they're still well within the story. It means that you can create anything. Because if that's the case, then it's not so out of the world that he fell in love with with her before he even went to fight, and so on and so forth.
My
So
apologies.
if that's the case, I'm not seeing what the big
because
issue
my
is.
issue isn't the David and Mikhail life story. I think that's absolutely plausible. That would have developed when David was in the house. My issue is the Mirab and Jordan story because if David was meant to marry the older daughter after Goliath, how is that possible if she's already been married off now?
But she hasn't been married off, though. The marriage has broken down.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, the marriage did break up at the end
Because Saul went mad.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, I didn't know. Fair enough. That's a correction on my part because I think that those were the feelings I was having during the episode, and then when all that happened, I was like, right, okay, so maybe this is how they're still gonna. This is how they're going to do it.
But then, because maybe of what's happened, she's now upset. So when it does come time to maybe marry David, she then does a run or does something, and then she gets married to somebody else at that point. If that's the case, they've set it up nicely because there's now a conflict or a tension already in the house. Concerning to marriage, because she liked the guy. They go on. I don't think up until now she's never really looked at David like that, and David is looking at somebody else. So on the love story aspect, if that's the case, I think they've laid it beautifully then.
Fair, okay,
they've laid it.
I can understand that. I can appreciate that. Fair enough. I think my issue is where's my issue? My issue is when I was watching this episode, I really had the thought that this show should have been called The House of Saul.
Yes,
because I think the approach should have been different if we were watching The House of Saul, which obviously features David and everything else, whatever. And David was obviously, he was still going to be the main character, because when you're watching those kind of shows, even though it's meant to focus on this character, you know that this show only exists because of this character. If that was the case, I think this would have been absolutely fine, because obviously with Saul we're given a bit of information, but it's limited. So you have a lot more scope with the House of Saul and the characters in the House of Saul. But with David being such a big figure as well in the Bible, I understand why a lot of people are hesitant and saying that no, this is not a good adaptation.
Again,
of the
let me push back a little bit on that. I think for me, what the series is doing is giving us David from the origins, from the grassroots, from the beginning.
But the Bible gives us that.
Yeah. So again, in talking about it should have been called the House of Saul. Not necessarily. It's still the House of David.
No, I'm just saying, if it was called the House of Saul, I think a lot of these issues that people are feeling would have been dealt with, because they would have known that the focus here.
No, but then you can't have David. You can't have the House of David without the House of Saul. The two of them are interlocked like this, because the House of David took over the kingship from the House of Saul. And the Bible does give us a very long story between the two of them going back and forth. And I'll tell you one of the scenes that I absolutely loved in terms of, you remember in the Bible, there's David goes to the battlefield and things like that. I mean, the story is vast, to be honest with you. The story is vast.
A lot.
But remember, there's a scene when David goes into the battlefield with one of his commanders or whoever at the time, and Saul is there sleeping, you know, and the commander, paraphrase, you can correct me on this, is like, should I just, and David got mad at him, you know, how
cave
or cave, wherever it was, but David got mad, said, no, that is the Lord's anointed. How can you do that? Now that scene where he asked him, do you want to take a seat on the throne? That whole conversation, it really brought about sort of like father-son kind of dynamics. See, like
100%.
I absolutely love that. And you could see the sincerity that David had towards Saul. You know, the fact that he respected Saul as the Lord's anointed. He never looked at himself, but, oh, now I'm the Lord's anointed, you are nothing. He still respected Saul. Even the answer, do you want to take a seat? He said, that is only for the... I thought that was brilliantly done. Because he didn't say no. He said, that's for the anointed of the Lord only. And then went to sat on it when he saw it left, because, well, he is the anointed of the Lord as well. So I was like, oh, that is my seat. It's our seat.
But the thing is, that's in keeping with the David of the Bible as well. And those are the created liberties that I like and I don't mind. Because that's the David we're given in the Bible. Because like you said, the experience... Up until Saul died and David took over and everything else, David always maintained that Saul was the Lord's anointed.
Exactly.
That was his attitude towards Saul. And that translates nicely into that. And so for me, the last 5 minutes of that episode are what the House of David started like for me, because I had no issue with that. And what I really liked is because it showed that mentorship of Saul. And that is how it would have happened, because the Bible says Saul really loved David before obviously he started feeling threatened by him after the Goliath situation.
Even during the threats, it was when the demons took over that he saw David as a threat. Otherwise, on a normal day, he was fine with David.
Whoa, no. After the people sang to say that Saul slain 1,000, David slain 10,000. At that point, Saul's attitude towards David started change, because I was like, because remember, he was always, my throne is going to leave me. But before that, the Bible says he loved David. And so 100%, he would have been talking to him as a friend, as also like a mentorship, really preparing the next king of Israel without knowing.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Well, I mean, on that note, though, in regards to, like I said, the writing, I think the quality of the writing has remained really good. The acting has remained decent. There were a few scenes where the acting came through. Like I could see people acting. So that was a bit of like it took me out of it a little bit. But overall, I'm still enjoying the series in terms of its production aspect of it. I think it's still good. In regards to the storyline, I'll watch the next episode, and I don't think it's a heresy point yet to say, oh no, heretical, guys, stop watching it. I think the caveat we've always given is that anyone watching it, don't watch it for educational or informational purposes, right?
The Bible provides that.
Yeah. So if you actually want to know the proper story, read the Bible. I guess this, like, I think you put it nicely. Instead of putting on House of the Dragon, it's better to put on House of David.
Right. Do you want me to point out a few things that irked me the most? I must tell her the truth.
Must tell her, why does that irk you?
I like that whole puppy love thing that was happening with David, in the sense that we know that David had a lot of wives. He loved women, right? So I guess him being mesmerized by her is not off the story too much.
Absolutely fine. Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's just I never enjoy these things where basically they're portrayed in a way that any man is brought down by a woman. It's just a simple thing, you know. He's been warned by the brother, listen, people have been killed for less than this. Now you want to be out there telling people that I'm the Lord's anointed. You're gonna damn yourself and damn the whole family, damn the whole tribe of Judah. Now because of this little doom, she deserves to know the truth. No, she doesn't. Keep it going. I'm not gonna lie. That annoyed me so much. I will say one more thing as well. Again, just on the aspect of David's fearlessness, I felt like that scene when the guy was trying to threaten to drop him off the wall, and Mandem put his arms out. He was like, "Go on, try it. I've got a purpose here." I thought that was brilliant. I was like, I thought he was gonna spill it again, because I don't trust him anymore. I don't trust David to keep this secret anymore. I feel like he just burned it to just blurt it out to somebody.
Well, but this is the thing. Again, those things are fine, because realistically, as a human, put yourself in that situation.
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong.
No.
I'm no longer like you. I'm just enjoying the series.
No, those kind of things are. I enjoy those kind of creative. For me, that's how you bring the story of the Bible to life. You look at the story of the Bible, how the characters that come out from the pages, and then you use that to fill in the gap. So. Yeah, but overall, obviously, you're saying you enjoyed it. Out of 10?
It did feel a little bit slow, and I think in terms of the overall story, there wasn't much that was added. So it was slow, enjoyable-ish, but not a very big step towards the big story, I would say. In fact, the only thing that I can think of that contributed to the overall story is like I said, the scene that I'm talking about, the fearlessness part of it, and also the ending. I thought the ending was great. I thought that was a great cliffhanger.
That was great.
Him sitting on the throne of, so to speak, Israel at the time. Sort of like, that was first time I can imagine that he also felt like and I can imagine, you know, God done, I'm saying God, but in the series, it's like God done that purposely so that he can try out the throne. I don't know. So I like that. I like the ending. In fact, I think I was telling you off air, I was like, oh no, don't end. You know, I wanted to see what's going to happen after that kind of thing. At the same time, I was like, don't sit on it. What are you doing? You know, you'll get killed. So again, I think for me to go to a 6.57 kind of thing, simply because it's now enjoyable. I'm in the series, you know, I'm drawn in. I'm following the characters and the story. In fact, so much so that I'm now just leaving the Bible aside and just looking at what they've created.
That's problematic.
But it's gonna have to be like that. Otherwise, you could find a lot of issues. But yeah, as an episode, it didn't take a big step towards where we know it's supposed to go.
Oh, but fair enough. Yeah, I mean, for me with this one, I think I would lean more towards the 5. I think if the episode was more like the last 5 minutes, if that was the energy and the direction of the episode, I think
it would
probably,
have been
I probably would have been like a 7 or an 8 because those last 5 minutes, especially that scene between Saul and David. That for me, I was like, yes, that's biblical.
That's what we need to. That's what we need to be seeing.
That's what we need
with
to
the
be
story
seeing.
of David.
That's bringing the story to life for me. But ladies and gents, that is what we think. I do understand and appreciate that with shows like this, with things like this, it will largely depend on personal preferences and stuff like that. So it is okay to disagree, to have different ideas, whatever. Just be kind, be respectful, regardless of whatever views you hear people say, or assuming, of course, it's coming from a good faith and we're all just trying to be the best Christians that we can be. Some people say things to purposely incite anger and stuff like that. Don't fall victim to those things. Rise above it. But you let us know what you think. Are you more on my side in that maybe you felt like this episode strayed a little bit too far from the source material, and therefore I feel like it was an unnecessary sidestep that we didn't need to take? Or are you more like Pro Nick who thinks, you know what, yes, it was a sidestep, but ultimately they're just laying foundation. They're going to get back to the source material, but then by the time we get back to it, now we have a deeper, richer foundation as to why that source material plays out. Listen, both those angles to me sound legitimate. What do you think? You let us know. Until next week, my name is Chinn. This is Pro Nick. This is Offbeat POV. Goodbye.